Günaydın herkese merhaba. Çevre TV ekranlarına hoş geldiniz. Ben Orkun Yazgan. Bugün 29 Eylül Çarşamba ve bizim için önemli bir gün, çok özel, önemli, değerli bir konu. Avrupa Birliği Türkiye Delegasyonu Başkanı Büyükelçi Nikolaus Meyer-Landrut'u ağırlayacağız. Türkiye-Avrupa Birliği ilişkilerini konuşacağız. Avrupa Yeşil Mutabakatı'nı konuşacağız. Paris İklim Anlaşması'nı onaylama kararı aldı Türkiye. Tüm bunları konuşacağız. Kısa bir aranın ardından bu özel röportajımızla sizlerle birlikte olacağız. Evet, Avrupa Birliği Türkiye Delegasyonu Başkanı Nikolaus Meyer-Landrut Ankara'da karşımızda ve bizim için de tabii çok büyük bir onur onunla birlikte olmak olacak bu yayında. Bu yayını özel olarak İngilizce devam edeceğiz. Çevre TV ekranlarında bu özel röportaja şimdi başlayalım ve Ankara'ya gidelim. Evet, Dear Mr. Ambassador, good morning from Istanbul to Ankara.
Good morning. Thank you for your invitation. Merhaba.
Merhaba, evet, hoş geldiniz. Welcome again. So it's a big pleasure to be with you in that special broadcast. So we'll talk about EU-Turkey relations, European Green Deal, of course, the Turkish approval for Paris Agreement, all of these. But before the official issues, I would like to start with you, Mr. Ambassador, with your daily life in Turkey, because as far as we can follow, you are an active diplomat. You participate some cultural activities, social activities, and also you just finished the bicycle period within the European Mobility Weeks. We saw it on the news. So we can start. How everything goes in Turkey for you, Mr. Meyer-Landrut?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in Turkey. It's now a year, a bit more than a year. I left last year. And this year, I must say, I appreciate very much that there is a return to a more normal life, that you can see children in the streets, that you have parents go to school, that you have more, how can I say, normal daily life.
Finally.
I think this is very, very important for all of us also psychologically to see and to live. And the other point which I would like to make is that I very much appreciate also the opportunities I have to discover the country, across the country, not only Istanbul or Ankara, different provinces, to see the diversity, to see the kindness of people, to discover the different geographic the different stories, the different parts of the country. Cultures. It's a very, very interesting and fascinating country. So I'm very pleased to be here.
Okay, welcome again. So you are in the middle of the busy days, European Mobility Weeks and plus Climate Action Weeks. You were together with the Mayor of Istanbul, Mr. İmamoğlu. You walked in Sultanahmet and also in Gaziantep, in Izmir, and also in Ankara with mayors. Could you talk about the importance of that week, sir, please?
Well, you see, the cities, the municipalities are at the center of the challenges when it's about transforming our economies and our way of life to a more climate conform, less pollution, less emissions, because of the high concentration of density of population in these areas. And so the Mobility Week, we try to create both awareness with the general public that everybody has to contribute to changing its behavior, that this is not a loss but a win, because you will live in much better conditions afterwards. And the other point, and this is why we have been dealing with the different municipalities and their mayors, who I thank very much for their engagement, it is that, of course, municipalities also need to adapt to these changes and need to contribute to create an environment in which people can walk, can take public transport, can bike, and thus make their individual contribution. So the Mobility Week is about awareness for the general public, but also encouragement and support for the municipalities to do the necessary transformations.
How was the reaction of the public, the people, when you were there?
Well, when you see a road which is closed to traffic, in which there are only people walking and biking, as we had here in Ankara, people enjoy it because they have a completely different environment in which they can take their breakfast in their cafes and so on. And biking, if you start to bike and to walk, you will see that this improves your personal well-being. So, but there you need an environment in which it is possible. I think there is still some way to go to understand that biking is not only something for sports, but also for daily traffic, for going from A to B, and not only to do sports on the weekends.
Yes, for less carbon and everything. So it's really important. Some of Turkish authorities also participated in those activities. We have some pictures of Mr. Director of EU Affairs, Mr. Faruk Kaymakçı. You work together, I think, in Ankara. You also have the pictures. So some authorities also participated in Turkey, well, rather than you.
I think the engagement of the authorities in Turkey, the European Directorate, the Deputy Foreign Minister you mentioned, Faruk Kaymakçı, but also others, in terms of awareness that things have to be changed, and also in the importance of cooperation between Turkey and the European Union in reaching common goals in terms of climate goals, Green Deal, and so on, is very important and very welcome. I think it's a very important area of cooperation for the years to come.
Okay, so we can go with the Turkey's and EU relations. In those days, where are we now? In which point? It started like 16 years ago in Luxembourg, and I was, as a correspondent, I was there. The negotiations have started. It's really important for Turkey. And it's been like 15 or 16 years. Where are we now, Mr. Ambassador?
We are, since the beginning of this year, I think, at an important moment, because we try to set in motion, put in place what we call a positive agenda. This is wished and worked for on both sides, in Turkey, Turkish authorities, but also by the European authorities. This is something which will develop gradually. We have seen since the summer the organization of several high-level dialogues between ministers and A first one took place actually on the climate and environment issues mid-September in Brussels. We will have a next high-level dialogue on home affairs, migration and related issues in early October here in Ankara, and probably a third one in the autumn, later in the autumn, on health issues. We have managed, I think, a very important step for all of us to include Turkey in the European digital COVID certificate system. Very practical issues on which we have been able to make progress. We, of course, have an important cooperation in the area of refugees, migration, now Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And we are working on both sides, I think, in the direction of being able to negotiate, hopefully soon, the modernization of the customs union. So there are many practical things on which we work and on which I think progress is possible and achievable.
And I think the climate as a general issue will somehow lead that process, Mr. Ambassador, because as you talked about, high-level environment dialogue meetings started in Brussels with Mr. Murat Kurum and with Timmermans from EU. So it will continue in Istanbul, in Turkey, I think. Could you talk about the importance of that dialogue meeting also?
Well, you see, for the European Union, in this period, under the Commission of Ursula von der Leyen, climate change, mitigate the effects of global warming will be the key issue of this Commission. Mm-hmm. And it will be the issue in every dimension of our work, internally but also externally, in trade issues as much as in agricultural issues, in energy questions as much as in transport issues. So it is very important for Turkey and for the European Union and Turkey to see eye to eye on these things, because Turkey is so much part of European value chain, so much part of the customs union, of our way of producing, of living, that it is important that there is an early understanding of where the European Union wants to go, an early understanding of what are the possibilities and the options for Turkey, and of developing also the necessary areas of cooperation by which support can be provided. And so this is something which will be a leading and key issue in the relations for the years to come, and it's a very positive one because we need to address it together. Nobody will achieve mitigating the effects of global warming alone, but everybody will benefit from it if we do it together.
Okay, so we will pass to European Green Deal now, but before that we have a video. Let's watch the video and let's go on, please, with the European Green Deal process. Right, video.
I want Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world by 2050.
Most importantly is the works which are going to be done.
Appropriate support for their obligations. We need everyone, and no one will get left behind.
As we continue to battle the pandemic, we must also focus on our long-term challenges. This is why the Green Deal, as a growth strategy, remains our compass throughout the recovery.
We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And today's agreement puts us on a clear path towards climate neutrality in 2050. It gives certainty to investors, to businesses, to public authorities, and to citizens. It future-proofs our union.
So as stated with Miss Ursula von der Leyen, it's really important. Everything is changing. We are in the middle or at the beginning of an era, a new paradigm maybe, a transition period. So everything will be transformed to green maybe. We can summarize like this. What is the main core of the European Green Deal? What would you like to say for this?
Well, I think there are two aspects to it. One is the decision which the European Union has taken for itself and actually inscribed in a climate law, that is that the European Union wants to be CO2 neutral by 2050. So by the mid-century, the European Union wants to be, as a target, neutral in terms of CO2 emissions. Yeah. And the second dimension of it, if you have a target, you need to put in place instruments to reach this, which means we have to make efforts in every sector of our life to reduce CO2 emissions. If we want to fight climate change, there is one recipe, this is reducing CO2 emissions. And there is no way around it. And so the main instrument the European Union has been developing over the last years is an emission trading scheme, which in simple words says that over time you have to buy the rights to emit CO2, and these rights will get more and more expensive. So you have a market mechanism which induces the users and the industry and the energy producers to produce clean energy, to produce industry in a clean fashion, so that they don't have to pay this additional and growing price. And this mechanism we want to extend and create actually a second mechanism which will also cover transport, because transport, this is why we had the Mobility Week also, is an area in which, compared to others, where CO2 emissions are still increasing. So we need to reverse the trend also in these areas. So the overriding objective of the different measures which the Commission has presented in its Green Deal proposals in summer is reducing CO2 emissions across the board, and then also, of course, try to speak with our trading partners that this is something which will not lead to a fact that then you don't produce in Europe, but you produce elsewhere, and you have more emissions somewhere else than you would have in Europe. So there is an international dimension to it as well, which is also an important issue in EU-Turkey relations.
Yeah, it's also very important for Turkish economy, for Turkish private sector. And as a European Union delegation, you have a special role in that transition period between EU. You know, the sanctions, some taxes will be implemented at the borders. So it's a new thing, new era. So we need some informations, we need some knowledge for this. So you have a really important role in that. I know that you have some partners in Turkey. You work together with, for educating people or for the knowledge and all. You work close with the chambers, with commercial chamber in Turkey, I think. You can talk about this, please.
Well, I see in my contacts and in their activities with the private sector chambers, but also individual business, that they are aware of the necessity to transform their own production, their ways of producing, to reduce CO2, to be compatible to what the European Union is doing in terms of reducing CO2 in industry. Why? Because they are part, a very important part, in EU value chains. And big corporates over time will want to know what is their CO2 footprint, not only in one country, but in their overall production. Yeah. So a part of an international corporate or even enterprises which provide spare parts or other services for big international corporates will have to say what is the CO2 footprint, because the overall philosophy will be to have it as little as possible. And those who will produce clean, who will produce green, will be the market leaders of tomorrow. So the investment in research, in development, in transforming way to produce has to take place now. Yes, it is an investment, but it is an investment in the future, which also has many, many opportunities. And I find that many of those representing the private sector in Turkey understand this and are looking towards these kind of transformations also as an opportunity.
So as far as you observed in Turkey, do you think the Turkish private sector can get along with that new dimension, new era of Green Deal? Are they ready, or they try to be ready?
I think they are aware, they are prepared.
Motivated?
Now, of course, motivated. Now, of course, many things need to be done in a decentralized way. And one word on what you said in terms of taxes. Actually, we don't want to levy taxes on anybody. We want to avoid comparative advantages through less efforts to reduce CO2. And if there is a commonality in approach, if there is the same prospects for these changes, then there will also be no border measures. So it is not something which is there to feed any budgets. It is really something which we would hope we would not need. So the more Turkey is on the same path, the more the question of potential border adjustment mechanisms becomes irrelevant. So this is why it's so important to work with Turkey now and to help. And we will have means. Turkey will be in the new period again member of the European research programs, Horizon Europe. Many of the projects which can be financed through this research programs will center on innovation, on transformation in the green area. So there are also means by which the European Union can support the Turkish economy to live up to these transformations.
We are together with head of the EU delegation to Turkey, Ambassador Nikolaus Meyer-Landrut. We continue to our interview. Now we can talk about the Paris Agreement. It's really important, for the world also. And after comes the Glasgow meeting in November. But before that, the President Erdogan has declared in the United Nations meeting that Turkey will approve the agreement, the Paris Agreement. So how do you see, how do you consider that decision? How do you evaluate this decision of Turkey for the climate agreement approval process?
This was a very welcome step, and I think Vice President Timmermans from the Commission and others have also publicly said how much they are welcoming this decision by Turkey. It is very important because it established the commonality of the objective. This is what I previously said now, and the objective is to reduce, to keep global warming at best around 1.5 degrees. And now it will, of course, be also interesting to see how and what Turkey plans to do to achieve the objective on the national level. And I have seen with interest that over the last weeks and months in the summer, the Turkish government has produced several action plans, is trying to take action on different fronts. And if this feeds into a common strategy which helps Turkey to achieve these Paris Agreement objectives, this would be a very welcome step to which we can only applaud.
So you say, although Turkey didn't approve yet, they have still, actions in terms of, zero waste projects and also the other global warming projects. Turkey is active in that way, but the approval will be a next phase or important phase of that process.
Because you have the Paris Agreement sets the global target, and then every state which is a party to this agreement will need to define its contribution to achieve this target.
Right.
And so you have many actions, but they need to come together to allow a country or a group of countries like the European Union to fulfill their commitments under the Paris Agreement. So this is roof, and this roof makes all the different actions come together and give them a common orientation. And if necessary, one might have to add additional measures if one sees that today's measures are not yet fully sufficient. But I see an important increase in production in renewable energy in this country. When I travel in the country, I see potential for more photovoltaic. So there is still also many things which can be done, which help to contribute to achieving these objectives.
Yeah, as we started, like we are in the middle of a huge transformation period. So we'll go like this. So the Glasgow Summit comes. It's a really important meeting. It will be a really important meeting. So what are the expectations before that crucial meeting, sir?
Well, we will have to see how much the different states party to the Paris Agreement are willing and able to increase their engagements which they had taken previously, because we still see from the scientific evidence that more needs to be done than what has been put on rails up to now. We have a very important dimension in Glasgow with the change of the American administration. So we will have a proactive Biden administration on this issue. You will see a proactive Commission and European Union on the basis of Green Deal. But we will also have to see what China will do, where India will be, where other big emerging countries will be on their way to reduce emissions. So it will be a moment of truth in which we need to see whether the actions foreseen by the community, the global community, add up or not.
Yeah.
Or not.
Okay. As a diplomat, you have a huge experience, in general. You worked with Chancellor Angela Merkel, and also some different parts of the world. How do you see the future for that global problem of environment, dear Ambassador? Are we going in a positive way, or we just talk, try to do something, but we cannot create some concrete measures? How do you see the future?
I think we have made important progress over the last years, also since the Paris Agreement. We are probably not there yet, but the positive dimension, and diplomats try to strengthen the positive dimension so that things continue, is that through measures which we take to reduce CO2 emissions, we have an impact. Global warming is not a fatality. The world community, through measures as we have discussed them, which will lead to CO2 reductions, can still reduce global warming to an acceptable level. So it's not something which is a lost case, but it is something on which we need to act now.
Yeah, it's time for the action, you say. So you act now. After the Mobility Weeks, you have some climate actions organizations, I think, for Climate Action Week, and you go to Marmaris, as far as I hear from your colleagues, for the beach cleanup, sir, huh?
Yes.
So.
Again, this is a matter of awareness that everybody can contribute to preserving our nature, of protecting also our species, and avoiding plastic going into the sea and so on. So it's very practical, and it's very important for everybody to understand that through his personal behavior, and this is not a burden on him, he can contribute to change the life for himself, for his children and his grandchildren to the better. And so we will try to contribute to this awareness process as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for participating our broadcast. It's a really pleasure, big pleasure and big honor for us, dear Mr. Ambassador. Have a good time for your projects and all.
Thank you very much and hope to see you soon. Perhaps in Istanbul.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Evet, Sayın Büyükelçi ile Meyer-Landrut'la İngilizce olarak yaptığımız röportajın sonuna geldik. Son derece önemli bir röportaj olduğunu, program olduğunu düşünüyorum. Avrupa Birliği'nin ana konusu Avrupa Yeşil Mutabakatı ve bu konuda özellikle Meyer-Landrut'un ve ekibinin burada yaptığı çalışmalar son derece önemli. Yayında kendisi de aktardı. Özellikle Avrupa Birliği'nin artık ana belgesi, anayasası diyelim bu konu olmuş durumda. Ve Türkiye'nin de uyum sürecinde bazı bilgilere, yol göstermelere ihtiyacı var. Avrupa Birliği delegasyonu da bu anlamda Meyer-Landrut başkanlığında bu şekilde çalışıyor. Özellikle Türkiye Odalar ve Borsalar Birliği ile bir ortak çalışmaları var. İş dünyasının, sektörlerin uyum sürecinde hazırlıklı olmaları konusunda gereken bilgileri veriyorlar. Zaten hemen hemen tüm yayınlarımızda akademisyenlerle konuşuyoruz. Son olarak Avrupa Birliği ve Dışişleri Bakan Yardımcısı Avrupa Birliği Başkanı Sayın Faruk Kaymakçı, Büyükelçi Kaymakçı ile de bir arada olmuştuk. O da aynı şeyi aktarmıştı. Dünkü yayınımızda Çiğdem Nas, Profesör Doktor, yine Çiğdem Nas'la da aynı konuyu konuşmuştuk. Artık çok ciddi bir transformasyon, dönüşüm dönemine giriyoruz. Avrupa Birliği bazı şeyleri ortaya koyuyor çevreyle ilgili ama Sayın Büyükelçi Landrut'un da söylediği gibi bunu yaptırımlarla da biraz daha ciddileştirmeyi amaçlıyor. Bu çerçevede işte gümrükte karbon ayak izi ve bununla ilgili bazı vergilendirmeler olacak ama bu vergilendirmeler hani bir ceza olarak, bir korkutucu düzenleme olarak değil, gelecek için önemli olan ve bundan sonraki o transformasyonda, o döngüsel ekonomiye geçişte bir adım olarak görün şeklinde o da altını çizdi. Dolayısıyla Sayın Büyükelçinin sözleri ve anlattıkları önemliydi. Paris İklim Anlaşması öncesinde, Glasgow zirvesi öncesinde Türkiye Paris İklim Anlaşması'nı onaylayacağını bizzat Cumhurbaşkanı Recep Tayyip Erdoğan tarafından New York'ta Birleşmiş Milletler toplantısında dile getirdi. Sayın Büyükelçi onun da önemine, Avrupa Birliği için de önemine dikkat çekti. Ve Türkiye'nin de zaten yaptığı birçok bu konuda organizasyon olduğunu, proje olduğunu, yenilenebilir enerji konusundaki yatırımlar, sıfır atık konusunda özellikle devam eden kampanya diyelim. Ve onun dışındaki tüm çevre başlıklı konularda Türkiye zaten aktifti. Ama imzalaması, beyan etmesi de son derece önemliydi Avrupa Birliği içinde. Ve Glasgow zirvesinden beklentileri de sıraladı. Bir yandan da Avrupa Hareketlilik Haftası çerçevesinde çok aktif Sayın Büyükelçi. Ben bir programın özetini yapıyorum bir yandan. Özel yayın olduğu için İngilizce olarak gerçekleştirdik. Gaziantep'e gittiler. Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanı Fatma Şahin'le, yine İstanbul'a Ekrem İmamoğlu ile Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanı ve Ankara'da Mansur Yavaş'la yine bisiklete bindiler, yürüyüş yaptılar. İstanbul'da Sultanahmet'te bir tur attılar ve yani hem işte karbon emisyonunun azaltılması anlamında, hem trafiğin azaltılması, hem sağlıklı yaşam anlamında yani bisikletin önemini altını çizdiler. Ve önümüzdeki günlerde de yine deniz temizliği, plajlarda, sahillerde temizlik yapmak için güney bölgelerine gidecekler. Dolayısıyla tam da çevreyle iç içe olduğu, tam da çevre gündeminin yoğun olduğu Avrupa Birliği için de, Avrupa Birliği, Avrupa Komisyonu, Türkiye temsilciliği için çevre gündeminin de yoğun olduğu bir dönemde bizi kırmadılar ve bu yayınımıza katıldılar. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz hem kendisine hem de ekibine. Bundan sonraki çalışmalarında da başarılar diliyoruz. Çünkü özellikle çevre başlıklı konularda kendisine çok büyük iş düşüyor. Tam anlamıyla Avrupa Yeşil Mutabakatı konusunda bir köprü görevi görecek. O yüzden verdiği bilgiler çok önemli. İstanbul'da da gelirsek görüşürüz şeklinde bir temennide de bulundu. Biz de bu şekilde takip edeceğiz. Evet, özel yayınımızdı. İzlediğiniz için teşekkür ederiz. Yeniden görüşmek üzere, hoşça kalın.